Not since Y2K has the threat of the end of the world been so talked about. Whether it's the Mayan calendar running out, nuclear warfare, or an economic collapse, some believe so fervently that Armageddon is at hand, they're digging in, building bunkers, and gathering supplies to withstand it. Doomsday, as it turns out, is also a profitable notion, and businesses are cashing in on people who are planning for the end of the world.
Hornings Mills, Ontario. In the dead of winter, it is cold, bleak, and desolate. But beneath the snowdrifts lays one man's deliverance. Bruce Beach believes the world is coming to an end, and he has been preparing for it for more than 30 years. As part of his plan to survive the apocalypse, Bruce has built his own makeshift bunker, made out of old school buses and concrete, buried deep underground. He calls it Ark 2. Bruce takes us on a tour.
This is the decontamination room. The procedure is we bring people in here and we decontaminate them. Then into this next room they go, and that's where we register them.
Everyone is welcome here, regardless of religion, race, nationality, political view.
Bruce started building the Ark in the late 1970s. He's been stockpiling survival food and supplies ever since.
This is really an underground nursery. One of the first rules of any disaster is that women and children first.
Why did you start building this? What was your motivation behind it?
I thought there's a threat of nuclear war. The intensifying of social problems, for myself, the increasing moral decay.
You believe that in your heart?
Not so much in the heart, but intellectually, I certainly believe it.
This business of prophesying the end of the world has been going on continuously for the last 2,000 years.
Catherine Denning is an archaeologist and anthropologist at York University. She says prophesizing about the day of reckoning has been going on as long as, well, mankind itself.
It's a human trait to have all this kind of imagination and these ways of sharing stories. There's just this continual cycle of new predictions, which invariably fail, but that doesn't deter anybody from starting a new one.
I do have a feel of calling, and that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and this is what I do. And if I'm doing what God wills, there's nothing anyone can encourage me or discourage me about it.
Bruce, who calls himself a radiological scientific officer, keeps dozens of radiation devices around, just in case.
You can test water and food with it. This comes out, take this probe, and you put a condom over it, and then you stick the probe down in the water. If you survive 2 years, and I think only 20% of people will survive 2 years, then you will have truly survived doomsday.
Bruce's plan for nuclear doomsday is simple. Live in the shelter for 3 weeks. Enough time to survive the carnage of the blast. But according to Colin Goldblatt of the University of Victoria's School of Earth and Ocean Sciences, that plan itself is doomed.
The nuclear war itself will kill tens of millions of people, but what's going to be far more dangerous is the fires that are ignited by all the nuclear blasts. They're going to put a lot of soot into the very highest parts of Earth's atmosphere, and that'll cause a massive global cooling, something we call a nuclear winter. I think a nuclear winter is going to last about a decade, and that will kill billions of people.
Goldblatt says the only real way to survive nuclear holocaust is to, well, avoid it in the first place.
I think if people really want to increase their chance of survival after a nuclear war, well, they need to stop that war happening in the first place.
But the people who believe in doomsday don't believe there is a way to stop the world from ending. There is one thing they do believe. They need to keep their bunker a secret. Never was this truer than in Asheville, North Carolina, where the 16x9 crew were blindfolded and taken deep into the woods. After a half hour of bumpy roads and winding trails, we arrived to this, a customized shelter under construction.
It's tough to find, and that's probably the key that my owner was most interested in, I would guess. It's hidden well by the mountains, and there's not a lot of people up here bothering with them.
And that means contractor Chad Muhlenberg is forbidden from revealing the true nature of the bunker to anyone.
We are building an interesting underground storage building, as it's known locally.
The nature itself of these buildings has a very large privacy, confidential factor.
Brian Camden is the owner of Hardened Structures, an engineering firm that designs and builds shelters, including this one. He says his clients have their reasons for keeping bunkers secret.
One is that in case something happens, your neighbors will be breaking down your door trying to get in. The other is the government's right to come in and take a shelter during a time of national crisis.
In that time of crisis, should it come, this bunker, with its reinforced blast doors, 18-inch concrete walls, and secret escape hatch, is a fortress against fear.
I think the people who purchase these type of structures are purchasing an insurance policy. Yeah, as a family man myself, my most precious asset is my family.
So you got your boxes?
Yeah.
Just need some lights?
Just need lights.
Yeah.
And protecting that precious asset isn't cheap. The price tag on this bunker, over $500,000.
We'll have granite countertops and some cabinets. The lighting we're working on, but we'll do some track lighting or something that looks a little bit more modern. You know, it would be just like having a small condominium, just underground 26 feet.
But customizing a doomsday bunker all depends on the prophecy you believe in. For some, the apocalypse is just months away, December 2012, with the end of the Mayan calendar.
Different clients have different perceptions of what will occur on this date. Some believe that the date is incorrect, that it'll happen earlier, some believe it'll happen later.
Next on 16x9, what would your dream house look like if doomsday was coming?
The structure offers many options. It's hardened against nuclear blast.
War, famine, pestilence, death. The shadow of the end for centuries has taken on different forms for different people. And it remains the same today. In Kansas, the sun sets over the remnants of the Cold War era. Hidden beneath the grassy plains lays a 1960s missile silo.
We have one of the most interesting protective structures in the county.
For Ed Payton, this is a dream home.
Okay, over here to the west, we have a 1,750-foot landing strip. There are a lot of people who are nervous and who are fearful. And they think a hardened underground structure, nuclear-proof structure, is a good hedge against an uncertain future.
For Ed, that uncertain future takes the form of economic collapse.
It seems that a collapse, an economic crash is imminent. There's been lots of warning signs, and it seems very clear.
Clear enough that Ed and his wife Diana are hunkered down here in a remote town on the outskirts of Topeka. The missile silo is a weird combination of domestic living and hardened military structure.
The structure offers many options. It's hardened against nuclear blast. We don't worry about tornadoes. And so it's a very special structure. We've been looking for that.
Ed and Diana have lived in that special structure underground for over 17 years.
Our home has a lot of the amenities that anybody's home has. You know, we do have electricity, running water, lights. The difference is we don't wash windows much. We don't have windows.
Ed shows us around. The living room, kitchen, bedrooms. And of course, what house doesn't have one? The missile room.
This is the launch missile room, the missile bay room. It's a 100 feet long room. Overhead there is a 400-ton door that rolled back to the west that allowed the missile to erect and come to stand there at the south end ready for launch.
This Atlas E missile silo, which housed the rocket horizontally, was born out of the fear of the Cold War, but became active during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Okay, we look down in here. This is the flame pit. And when the missile came to stand right here, and when it was fired, all of the flame and the back pressure from that rocket would exit the building through this pit.
Ed isn't just living in a missile silo, he's selling them to others worried that the end is nigh. But lately, business hasn't been so good.
It's difficult to buy right now. Banks won't lend, and everybody's getting poor, even the rich.
It's a problem many of Brian Camden's clients are worried about too, and it's part of the motivation behind building this site.
The majority of our business right now is geared mainly toward economic collapse, breakdown in civilization.
And for Ed, economic breakdown isn't far-fetched. He points to the political unrest in Greece and Occupy Wall Street as proof that life as we know it is about to end.
What's happening in the collective human experience is kind of sad. I mean, everyone is becoming aware the economies of the world's nations are in jeopardy.
In northwestern Ontario, that isn't the way Bruce Beach sees the end. For Bruce, Doomsday is his chance to rebuild society gone wrong.
We printed up 23,000 copies of these, and we've distributed them to every state in the United States, every province in Canada. One of the questions we put on the back, putting it all back like it was. Do we want to put it back like it is today? No. This isn't the end of an age. People they talk about the end of the world. This is the beginning of the coming of maturity of humanity. This is the transition. This is the birth pangs that humanity is going through.
Anthropologist Catherine Denning says this line of thought relates back to the final judgment and getting into heaven. For a lot of people, there's an optimism that comes with the quote-unquote end of the world.
Sure.
How do you explain that?
So if you believe that this world is kind of sinful and falling into increasing disarray, and that what is needed then is this giant correction, and then you get to go and live your real life after death, then it may not seem like such a bad thing that the world is going to end. They're almost kind of looking forward to it.
The only thing that's going to turn it back around is this thing we call Armageddon, because people do not know the purpose of life. That is to know God, to worship Him, and to serve their fellow man.
Again, that's a biblical notion back to the Great Flood. So these old ideas are kind of old, but just recurring.
A biblical notion centuries old, very much alive today. But even some of those preparing for the apocalypse live in hope that the end doesn't come at all.
My greatest hope is just to slide through smoothly, enjoying life as I am. I don't want anything to happen. I don't know how long I can exist without seeing the stars.